Hi everyone, and thank you for tuning in. I'm really excited to bring you this program. This is the first part of 10, and I'll be sharing the first and second one for free for everyone to take a look and understand my style and see if they want to follow through. And if you're interested to join the full program, you have until the end of the month, and you can message me so I can add you to the group and to organize all the payment details. So today, and for the next 6 weeks, I'll be informing you about Eastern medicine and specifically Chinese medicine and how it helps to view the human body differently, to understand how we each have an imbalance, and to see how we can come back to a state of balance using food, herbs, and lifestyle. And also, I'll be adding in some physical tools like massage, yoga, and breathwork. Now, the first thing I want to do here is define what is energy, because we're talking about food energetics. But what is energy? If you look up its definition, you'll find several ones referring to it as a quality or a force or something that is transferred from a part of a system to another. And these are all quite loose definitions. Like, we don't actually know what it is. We can measure it in different ways. And yet, if you say that you have high energy or low energy or nervous energy, we don't really have a device that can measure it. And yet, there are novel techniques to do that, but also ancient ones. And if we go back to the traditional Chinese medicine, they have a concept called qi. It's written qi, but pronounced qi. That is the essential life force that flows through all of nature. So every living being has it, from humans to trees to the planet itself. And its balanced movement has the power to strengthen, energize, and heal the body. And this concept of balance is key here because we will learn about our imbalances and how to correct them, which means basically how to allow the qi to flow properly and clear any obstructions to its movement. And all of this will be explained later on in other presentations, but we'll just start little by little introducing key terms, and eventually you'll have a much bigger picture of how everything goes on and a much better understanding of the human body from a totally different lens, I hope. Now, the most important thing to understand here is the connection between the mind and the body, which is essentially the connection between the physical and the emotional, and that also includes the mental and the spiritual. So what we're looking at first and foremost is how emotions affect our body functions, but also how a malfunction will affect our emotions. So just a very simple example is if you get stressed and you feel like your stomach is shrinking and you're not digesting properly, it will actually cause frustration over time, right? Like if it's chronic, it will upset you. But then when you're upset, you will also have other issues because you being upset will affect the flow of energy in your body, and so on and so forth. So it's really important to harvest a positive mindset here, and it's equally important to understand the signals that our body is sending us, because it happens 24/7, but we do choose to ignore it sometimes. But there are also things that we were never taught, and I think the most important thing that we need to know is that we are all different, and we are all like different facets of the same thing, kind of like the size of a diamond. But in Western medicine, they tend to reduce us to a one box model and try to like apply everything. Everything is a one size fits all model. And that's not true because we're so much more complicated than that. And it's beautiful that we're different. And so this is why I chose the Eastern approach to medicine, and also because that's what healed me. And one of the most beautiful things here is that Eastern medicines pay a huge respect to nature, because we can't be separated from nature. Like, we are a product of our environment, and our environment is what is around us. So it's our room, our home, our country, our climate. It's all the elements that surround us. And even if we live in a big city, you always have a connection to the elements, and I'll talk about this in further slides. But if you want to get curious, you can also see a TED Talk that I did 2 years ago talking about the importance of the elements and how to harvest them in a way to nurture us and to basically maximize the benefits of what's around us. So I encourage you to see it. It's a quite short one, and you also get to know me more if you don't know me yet. And when it comes to my story, well, I've been through so many digestive issues since I was a kid. Actually, since I was like when I started eating, and milk was my first issue. And then I've tried so many diets from the age of 16. I quit meat for 8 years. I was vegan for a couple of years, and then more or less pescatarian for 8 years. And in vain, honestly, because I was eating super clean. I thought I was doing the best of what's there. I was super disciplined, and yet still bloated, still had some acne, and then it took me a while until I actually found my balance. And to be honest with you, when I first heard advice from a Chinese medicine practitioner, I completely ignored it. I was very, very resisting the idea of eating differently and following certain rules. But now those are the rules that I apply every day, and I'm so grateful that I found them. But at first it was like a huge resistance, and it's only when I started to dig in more and to learn more, and that's when I got certified and etc. That's when I realized, like, okay, wow, this is actually foolproof. And so this is why I'm giving it to you, and I'm offering you my knowledge, and in hopes that it helps so many people and saves you time from trying so many things and so many fad diets that in the end only create more frustration. The main principles of Chinese medicine are that first and foremost, our bodies respond to the environment and climate that they're in, and the body knows how to heal itself. It's just a matter of giving it the right tools, the right conditions, the right self-talk and self-love for the nervous system to regulate, and then it heals itself. So there's actually no such thing as a healer. There's that we are all self-healers. It's just that we are given the right guidance and the right circumstances to heal. And every part of our body is connected, so your organs are affecting your psyche. Your organs cannot be isolated. Everything is part of a system. It's a whole, and that's why holistic medicine is a term that I like to use for my work, because I like to see everything as one cohesive organism, and you can't single one thing out and only treat one thing. Then an important part is that we need to balance the yin and yang energies, and this I'll talk about a little bit in a couple of slides, but it also refers to our qi and how to find balance between extremes. And lastly, outside factors affect our balance, so this is why we talk a lot about the elements and emotions. Now, this is one of my most important slides, one of my favorite slides, and you'll see it in other presentations and other parts. We are looking at the yin and the yang energies, and basically, the yin energy is the female. The female energy goes down. It's slower, it's gentle, it likes to nourish, it likes to absorb, and it's depicted here by a girl sleeping, and this is the extreme of the yin. It's the rest. Then on the other extreme, we have the yang energy, which is hot, it's fiery, it wants to do things, it wants to accomplish and achieve and create and start, and it can be very tiring, right, if you do too much of that. But in this case, I just put weightlifter, but we're basically looking at an energy that is so useful, but too much of it will be destructive. And it's the same thing with the yin. Too much of it is just absolutely useless. So you need both. Men or females, we all need both of them. And we need to work with them at the right time. So you basically want to feel more yin at night and more yang by day, not the other way around. And to strive for balance, you basically need to support that through the right foods. And the foods also have yin and yang energies. So looking at the spectrum here, we have the frozen, the raw, the sweets, like fruits and vegetables are mostly on the yin side. And then on the yang side, you have the meats, you have salty foods, you have pickled foods, you have coffee and alcohol. And these are the things that really give you a boost. But if you stick too much on one end of those, you will have issues, and this will be in the second presentation where I talk about extreme diets and balance. So generally speaking, if you want to have a neutral diet, you're going to be eating whole foods, like whole grains, cooked vegetables, a bit of nuts, some fish, some chicken, the occasional, heavier meal, and the occasional raw meal. But it will be mostly a very simple diet. And actually, if you look at any traditional group or culture, most of their food is balanced. So only extreme conditions require extreme diets. Now, another heavy slide that you will see again, so don't worry about this too much. I'm only giving a simple overview here. This is the elements and how they relate to the organs, and each element has a specific trait. So that is a feeling, or this kindness, anger, calm, etc., and a flavor. So we have sour, bitter, sweet, spicy, and salty. And it's really interesting because this actually has a way of relating to us as characters. We have personalities that are dominated by those elements, and it's also reflected in our body types. But the main takeaway here is that the wood element refers to the liver and the gallbladder. The fire is in the heart and the small intestine. The earth element is in the spleen and the stomach. The metal in the lungs and the colon, because this is actually our elimination channels. When you think about it, you exhale old air and you release what you no longer need from the colon. And then we have the water element with the kidneys and the bladder. Now on to constitutions. I love this one because this is the best, it's like the best argument that shows how Eastern medicine really looks at the bio-individuality and yet makes sense out of it. So it's like, yeah, we're all different, but you can still apply some reasoning and common sense to identify common traits between people that are different. And it all comes down to 9 different constitutions. Again, we're only going to look at the overview this time, and this will come back on the 7th or the 8th part, where we're going to be creating our own meal plan and understanding our differences like to the T. But just for today, we're looking at the different terms very quickly, just to have an idea. So we have a chi deficiency or a chi stagnation, which makes us tired and slow. Or we'll have a yang deficiency, which makes us very cold. As you can see, that little man is like freezing. And then we have the yin deficiency on the other hand, where you have extreme thirst because you're so dry. And if you know anyone who's gone through menopause, you'll know that this is like a really horrible thing that happens after menopause is a yin deficiency, because the female no longer has the fertility in her and the body is changing. And so this is how, we simplify it, but of course it goes much deeper than that. But basically you have so many things that change with age and with gender. And of course, our emotions also affect us, like I talked about earlier, like stress and overthinking and all that. And also environment. So our climates definitely affect our digestion. And this is why we need to eat differently with the seasons. We need to always correct our food depending on what's available. And just look at the other figures. We also have the phlegm dampness, which is like water retention and very stubborn fat. We have blood stasis, so it's like slow recovery. We have damp heat, which is basically when you're more prone to infections, you've got damp heat. And then we have that special intrinsic body at the lower right corner, and this is pretty much a product of our 20th and 21st century kids, where we have allergies and unexplainable things that are kind of new. But there is an actual scientific reasoning for them. And then we have, lastly, and maybe more rarely, the neutral and balanced guy with a happy heart in the middle. So we're going to be covering all of these much later. Don't worry now about all these terms. I'm going to explain everything in the next slide and further on during the program. Alright, so here are the main terms that we'll be dealing with. You don't have to memorize anything right now. You'll understand everything as I go on with my slides and with the future presentations I'll be doing as well. Basically, what we're doing is looking at whether a condition is one of excess or deficiency, and we're not really talking about anything analytical. So we're not looking at specific mineral, but we're looking at energies. So it will come up later. You don't worry about it now. But we're also looking at something, whether it's external or internal. So that means is it visible? Is it something on the skin or in the hair, or is it happening inside the body? And it's usually internal. And then we're looking at something, we're looking at the hot and cold energies of food. And that's not necessarily to do with whether something came out of the fridge or not. But it does have a certain like heating or cooling effect on the body, and you'll see this in a couple of slides. And then similarly, we're also looking at whether something will dry up the body or dampen. And we all need moisture, like we all need a balance of moisture, but it goes beyond that. So dampness is also like the ability for cleansing, and you'll see this in next week's presentation. And then the last thing here is the yin and yang, which I've explained before. But you'll see all these concepts are going to come up again and again, and I just want to introduce them here, but I will always bring them up later on with examples, and we will go in depth on these in a couple of weeks. Now, this is quite a heavy slide, but don't worry, the takeaway message here is quite short. So as we've seen earlier, we have 5 main organs, and each organ is referred to by a color and a flavor, but the biggest thing I want you to remember now is that the spleen, which is always depicted in yellow or orange, is one of the most taxed organ that we have, all of us as a collective, because our food is so processed and heavy, and especially the sugar content and everything. I'm sure you're familiar with that. But the spleen system in Chinese medicine, it's not just that little organ that sits above your stomach. It's also your lymphatic system and your pancreas. And the Chinese actually view the spleen as a transforming organ and a detoxing organ. So when you have like a jammed up transport service and detox service, you're going to have issues with your digestion, your immunity, and your concentration. And this is really what I want you to remember from that slide. And I'm sure you can all relate with that, or with at least 2 of these. So that's something that will come up a lot in almost every presentation I'll be giving from this point on. So as I said before, the spleen is responsible for the transportation and transformation of fluids in the body. And we're all, as a collective, eating the wrong things, and this is affecting us, especially with weight gain, water retention, concentration issues, low immunity, and digestive issues, and bloating, and feeling tired, and so many things that are also called IBS, but I don't believe in that term. So I like to look at things from a more rational perspective and a more holistic perspective. And this is why I love the Chinese approach to this, because it just makes so much sense. And when you start eating according to your constitution, you realize like, wow, all these problems are gone. And it's not about eliminating a food group at all. It's also looking at how we cook things, because as you see here, like raw foods, mostly in dessert form or smoothies or too much fruit or too much salad, will actually affect your spleen. And you know that saying of a moment on the lips, forever on the hips. Well, if your spleen is not working properly, that's actually what's going to happen. And even with things that you would consider clean foods. So it's not just the sodas and the fried food, but so much cold food is really our enemy right now. And that kind of also explains, right? Like if you remember a few years ago, ginger was such a huge trend. And that's because ginger helped combat the side effects of cold foods on a small scale, but it still does something. But we'll see later, and ginger is not suitable for everyone, but you'll understand all of this in a couple of slides as well. Now remember how I said that the yin foods are the fruits and the vegetables and the raw foods, and then the yang foods are more meat and cooked and pickled and salty and fried and all that. So there is always a good side and a bad side to everything, right? So everything is about balance here. Yin foods on the upper hand will make you feel happy and light, and on the extreme you will feel spacey and scattered, because essentially these affect your spleen. And like I said, your spleen affects your concentration. So you will be a bit like, whoo, out there. And you will also feel bloated, tired, you might have diarrhea, could have anemia from too much yin foods. On the other hand, yang foods are going to give you focus and are usually packed with nutrition. So you will get all the things that you need. But too much of it is a bit fiery energy, remember? So it's going to make you aggressive, going to make you irritated, constipated, you might have rashes, headaches, and this is your cue to know that something has to change in your diet. So we'll look at the next slide. And here we have the cooling and warming foods. So I want you to notice something. Those are all vegetables and fruits, but they have different properties. They can be cooling or warming. So this is why I want you to look at yin and yang differently from hot and cold. They do not always correlate. But don't worry about this now. All I want you to look at here is that you have fruits and vegetables that cool your body down, and these are mostly watery things. So you have like the citrus, the cucumbers, watermelons also in there, coconut water, and these are all things that will refresh you, and you might want to have more of those in the summer. But then it comes winter or autumn, and suddenly everybody wants pumpkin spice, like you want cinnamon, you want ginger, you want to maybe add more garlic to your food, you want to have something that just gives you a bit of like fire in your throat. And I'm sure you would feel that when you're reading all the names here. And it's just really beautiful to see this, because this is the medicinal properties of food and herbs, and we'll be using them throughout the whole program. So what makes a balanced meal? Well, let me tell you, it doesn't have to be vegan or vegetarian or anything. And this will be the topic of our next lecture. But just for today, I wanted to see that a balanced meal can be one that is either cooked or could be a mix of cooked and a bit of raw. Like here I have a coleslaw salad. You can also include proteins that doesn't make it doesn't like tip the scales too much. You have to look at the bigger picture. But most importantly, a balanced meal is different for everyone. And for those of you joining this program, by the end of the program, you'll be able to create your own meal plan and maybe also help your friends and family to correct theirs. All right, so what's next? Next week, I'll be releasing a video on excessive diets and neutral diets. And then the following will be for those who are joining the program. So we'll be talking about problematic foods and myths around ingredients in certain food groups. We'll be doing a little interactive session on how to listen to your body. And then I'll be introducing the problems of constipation, diarrhea, and bloating, and massage and yogic tools that can help. And then we have a big one. It's emotions, organs, and digestion. So how do emotions affect our digestion and how we can prevent that? And then we'll be doing a deeper dive and looking at all the elements that I've talked about and the constitutions and help you create your own meal plan. Then lastly, we'll be looking at how food affects our periods for the ladies and how we can take care of that, and how we can also enhance our hair, skin, nails, and appearance by using the right foods and herbs. So please, if you'd like to join us, you still can. I'm going to be giving a 2-week grace period for those of you who are interested. Please message me and we'll finalize all the details together. For those of you who will be joining, I'll be giving a free copy of my last book, Happy Belly, The New Recipes, and you also get a free sample of items from my brand Cashew, which will be the ones that are actually good for you, like those that will help your constitution, and you'll get 20% off any food session with me, although I actually am doing this course so that you will not need a consultation with me. However, if you do have like a very advanced case and many other issues you want to look at, I'm offering that, and I can also offer that 20% discount for children if you have, because I also do consultations for kids of all ages, including pregnant women as well. Okay, my darlings, so this concludes our first lecture. And for those of you who are already part of the program, I'll invite you to go onto the group chat and say hi, introduce yourselves very briefly or as detailed as you want, and share with us the best and the worst advice you've ever been told about health or food. So I would like to see how it related to you. Maybe it's something that you heard a long time ago, and then when you actually applied it, or maybe you just realized later on that it was actually great advice, or the other way around. And lastly, I also would like to know about a time in your life when your digestion was amazing, when you felt great, you didn't have any issues. Even if that was like a long time ago or when you were much younger, I would still like to hear about it. So thank you all for listening. I'm so delighted to be doing this. I look forward so much to sharing all the things I've learned and to put them in a format that I wish I had received, because it's all about improving the experience, right? So let me know if you have any comments. Please let me know. Help this video by giving it some thumbs up, or if you want to share it with people that you think will be interested, please do. I wish you a lovely day and see you soon.